For that, but if everybody's okay, we'll go ahead and get started with our September 2025 interim meeting of the Commission on Race and Access to Opportunity. Our staffers, which we couldn't do without, our lead staffers Brandon White here to my left and committee assistant Logan Schaff here to my right. So we appreciate them. Logan, if you would at this time go ahead and call the roll.
Senator Berg. Senator Herron. Senator Tishner.
Here.
Representative Brown.
Here.
Representative Heverin.
Present.
Representative Kulkarni. Ms. Baird. Mr. Forrester.
Here.
Mr. Pryor. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith Willis. Co-Chair Mays Bledsoe. Co-Chair Jackson.
Present. We do have a quorum and we are legislated to do business. I do want to introduce our newest member. Well, we seem like we have a revolving door a little bit this session, but this young man came and testified the first committee meeting we had this year, and we liked him so much we asked him to be on our committee, and he has agreed to do that graciously. Mr. Larry Forrester. And Larry, would you want to say anything, introduce yourself?
First, thank you for having me here, and the invitation, I guess, is somewhat permanent as long as I want it to be. But just want to say I do appreciate the opportunity to serve the state of Kentucky, and I will do so to the best of my abilities. And thank you again, and I'll let you carry on, Senator Jackson.
We look forward to working with you, Larry, on this committee. Thank you for agreeing to participate. Any member have comments or recognitions at this time? Anybody want to recognize comments? Co-Chair Mays Bledsoe, any words of wisdom from you this morning or this afternoon? Anything? Hate to put you on a spot like that, but we missed you at the last meeting, so I wanted to make sure you had a chance to catch up if you needed to. Since we do have a quorum, do I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the August 26, 2025 meeting?
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Minutes are approved from the August committee meeting. We've got a pretty good packed schedule today, and I'm thankful that we have people that are willing to come and present to us at this time. I'll go ahead and ask my friends from the Warren County Public School System to go ahead and come forward, if you would, and get your presentation ready. Glad to see Superintendent Clayton and Assistant Superintendent Johnson here. I spent 5 years on the Warren County School Board with these good people, so I know them personally, and we asked them if they would come and present today on our integrating our immigrant community into our neighborhoods and our communities. And best I remember, the fastest growing population in Warren County Public Schools when I was on the school board was our immigrant population. We call them ELL, English Language Learners, those that English is not their first language. And I can tell you Warren County Public Schools was very welcoming to all of those students, no matter where they came from, no matter their background, education level. They welcome each and every one of those students with open arms. So if you would, introduce yourself, make sure that green light's on your microphone there, please, and introduce yourself for the record, and the show is yours.
Thank you, Representative Jackson. Is this coming through?
Hit that button.
My eyes are going bad. It
go.
looked green, but I guess there's a brighter green when you turn it on, right? It's an honor to be here to meet with you guys, so thank you for taking time in your committee meeting to hear an update on our work with our English language learners. I'm Rob Clayton, superintendent, now entering my 13th year in Warren County, and to my left is Dr. Sarah Johnson, but I'll let her share a brief background on her expertise as well.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us today. Sarah Johnson, Assistant Superintendent in Warren County, and this is my 27th year in education.
All right. So what we would like to do is provide just a brief overview of our school community in relation to our English language learners. A couple things that will help you. Initial ELL, then it rotated to just EL, English language, and then more recently we're starting to use ML for multilingual, and so you'll see that in today's presentation. Warren County Public Schools is approaching 19,000 students. We've grown about 50% in my 12 years in Warren County, and a big population growth in our community does relate to our English language multilingual learners, some refugees, some being born in the country. The number of countries represented and the number of languages is really a moving target. And what we tried to do is provide the most recent update for you guys this afternoon, and that stands at roughly 92 languages representing 90 countries. And our population now is approaching 5,500 multilingual students, again, out of 19,000. We have 57 certified multilingual teachers, and you'll see in one of our charts today, we made a pivot this past year, and primarily due to the exploding financial impact as this population continues to grow. We opened the first international high school in the state of Kentucky and pivoted just this past year as we continuously look at how can we maximize the limited resources with the greatest return on that investment, and that continues to be our daily challenge. We do have a GEO Center, which is an instrumental piece as we welcome these new students and their families into our community, and that's been a very positive attribute of Warren County Public Schools. And then we do have migrant and refugee advocates because we do have a sizable portion of migrants in our district. And my understanding, as of last year, we had the highest population of migrant students across the Commonwealth, despite being the fourth largest district in Kentucky. Our multilingual learners in 2015, we had 1917, so just under 2,000, and now that number is up to 4,700 roughly, and again continues to fluctuate each and every day. In terms of students that have been identified as multilingual at one point in time, we're looking at 55%, and so that number again is north of 30% of our student population. And then preschool has been a major emphasis. Dr. Johnson has really been the spearhead in our district as we've tried to expand those resources, and including serving our multilingual students, which as of today is 258 students. And then we have refugee advocates serving roughly 628 further students. And so before we transition into the accountability piece that we think is really an important part of the conversation, I'm going to have Dr. Johnson take that piece. She's certainly more adept in that and really leads that for our district and does a phenomenal job. But I want to share quickly that the multilingual population in our community is, as Representative Jackson said, we welcome them. And I think there's a couple key attributes that are really unique to that population. Number one, the vast majority, if not all, truly value our public education system. And as an educator, that goes a long way. And then secondly, we see that value from the parents, but then we also see it with the students. And so if you came in and spoke to any of our educators, both those that specifically serve our English language learners or just our regular population of teachers, they'll tell you they love them. They really enjoy working with students who are trying to do the best that they can with the challenges in terms of not just the speaking, but the resource situation that many of our immigrant refugee families find themselves in. And so what you will find is our school system, along with our international center and really our entire community, United Way. I serve on that board. I serve on the board of our Chamber of Commerce, and all the leadership entities are very much engaged in how do we best serve this population so they can be valuable and contributing members of our great community. So with that, Dr. Johnson's going to take us in through some updates on the accountability piece, and then what we hope we can do at the conclusion is come together and look at a couple things that perhaps could really benefit not just Warren County Public Schools, but any school district that has multilingual students in their system. So, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Clayton. This slide here really just reviews all the accountability for our EL students, starting with the English Proficiency Assessment, along with the KSA Assessment, and then, as you know, post-secondary readiness and graduation rate. So what we want to share with you today is really just how can we give them more time to become proficient. And as you know, our students are only given 1 year to become proficient. And that's proficient in the standards of that grade level, as well as all the standards prior to that grade level. So when we get a student, they get 1 year of exemption for the state assessment. And then after that, they are expected to perform at the same level of students who have been here multiple years and speak English. And so we're asking for more time. Now, we're excited about the proposal for the new accountability system because that may change and give our students a little more time to become proficient. But as of right now, they're assessed after the first year. And that assessment includes many hours and days of testing that require a lot of reading, processing, and writing. It's starting in third grade. And then the other thing is the graduation rate. So for students to be accountable in a school, you have to be enrolled 100 days. To be accountable for graduation rate, you only have to be in the school 1 day. And so you can come, you can enroll, and then you may decide that a different placement is better. You may decide that I'm 17 years old or I'm 18 years old, and the chance of me getting enough credits to graduate is overwhelming. And so it's best to find work and to support my family. And so for graduation rate, it's different in terms of accountability. You get, as soon as you're enrolled in one of our schools, then you become accountable. So what we would like to show you is just a little bit of data. Won't go into every line item here. But what I want to point out is this is data from our KSA assessments. Again, those start at third grade. So these are for our English learners. If you look at the top bar, that represents the 1 year. You've been in the United States in our school 1 year, and now you're taking the assessment. The blue represents distinguished, then proficient's a green, apprentice yellow, and the red is novice. Well, what this shows you is as you stay enrolled in our school system, the proficiency is increased. And so when we ask for students having more than 1 year to learn the English language and learn all the standards, this demonstrates just more time, gives them more access to proficiency. The last bar there shows you, if you've been with us since kindergarten, the rate of proficiency. And those two show reading and math. The next slide, you'll see science, social studies, and writing. Specifically, I want to point out writing, because writing is involved in all aspects of assessments in every subject. So when you look at writing, you can see if you've been with us 12 months to 23 months, that's the top bar. But as you progress and you have more time, you grow in proficiency in writing, which impacts all aspects of assessments.
Can you go back one, just for clarity, because I know when we show maps that we look at routinely, it's pretty easy to see the color codes, but the top from left to right is 1 year, and then the bottom means they've been with us throughout from kindergarten. And when you look at the blue, green, yellow combined, that tells you apprentice or above. And of course, the red is novice. And I think, as Dr. Johnson pointed out, you can see significant progress as those students do obtain mastery of the English language. So with that, we wanted to also highlight some of the challenges that we see with this, and primarily it comes back to funding. And so what you would see just in the last 10 years, from 2016 to 2025, you can see that the special revenue has increased from $343,000 to $849,000. The general fund, you can see that's been tripled from $2.2 million to $6.6 million that Warren County Public Schools is allocating toward that particular population. And the bottom line shows you the total of both. And so just in the last decade, you're looking at almost a 300% increase in the revenue needed, or that's being allocated, I should say, to this population. But pay particular attention to the general fund. And basically what that is referencing, that's coming off of our local taxpayers. And that's the challenge that Warren County faces, and a handful of other school districts across the Commonwealth. But when you figure the 171, we're in the great minority in terms of having this type of financial impact on our organization. And then in terms of our multilingual funding there, we've shared a chart that helps break that down. The special revenue is the revenue that's allocated to help us offset the overall expense. And as you can tell, it's remained relatively flat, but you don't see that in the blue, which again are the allocations coming out of our general fund. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, you'll see fiscal year 26, you see that blue took a dramatic dip. And so we have reallocated some of those resources. Primarily, we eliminated EL teaching assistants. We did not remove those positions because they're not effective. We made the calculated decision to see if we reallocated that from teacher assistants toward technology, primarily translation services, but then also potentially increase the number of certified staff if the number warranted. That's where the shift came. And as we all know, human capital is your most expensive expenditure in a school district, and in most cases, most organizations. So by making that shift, you can see that we have, and I use the term, stop some of the bleeding. And it was a very difficult decision, albeit we think that this new translation service and the reallocation of these resources can have a similar positive impact. Time will tell. But the reason we felt it was critical is it was continuing to impact the monies available for our other 15,000 students. And as you all can appreciate, when we make decisions, we're trying to do what's in the best interest of all students, knowing that it's impossible to hit the mark with every student. And so that's why you'll see a difference there from the fiscal year 25 to this current year. And then in terms of how that equates to potential needs, again, we find that these students are far more expensive to educate than most people realize, again, because you're only seeing a significant impact in your more large urban areas. The translation services for our students are critical. We've partnered up with Audio Enhancement. Some of you may be familiar with that particular solution, in which it provides real-time translation of the content. And so that's a new step forward for us with the use of artificial intelligence. We're confident that that is the right path. But again, with roughly 5,500 students, 45 that are receiving services, you can see, just do the math between the number of staff. It's a high ratio, and it's primarily because of the availability of our limited funds. And of course, the resources for us, our most important resource outside of human capital is our time. And so we're always looking at how can we be more efficient with the current resources we have with the greatest return on that investment. And then the accountability, there's a couple things I want to point out here. When I first was named superintendent, probably within 3 months, I sat down at one of our high schools that had the higher EL population and wanted to sit down with students that had dropped out. And I'll never forget it, just like it was yesterday. There were 13 sitting around the table. They all went around and gave me their story. And I went in there as a rambunctious new superintendent that I'm going to convince these students why it's so important to stay in school and graduate. After that 2+ hour meeting, I couldn't encourage any of those students. One of them did come back, but I couldn't in good conscience encourage any of them to come back to get the high school diploma. You say, why is that? Because their stories were so desperate, and they were doing the most noble thing. They were working to provide for their family, not for themselves, for their family. And I, again, couldn't in good conscience try to steer them away from that, knowing that they're going to change generational poverty for their family, albeit it may be 20, 30 years, but they'll be the very folks doing that just like our ancestors who came before us. And so with that, one of the challenges that we see is these families typically will end up in the same community. You say, why is that? Well, they need support in housing and resources. We can't provide that all across Warren County. It's in a certain pocket of our community. So when those families do get uplifted enough to where they can start to do more on their own, they'll move out, but those housing facilities will be backfilled with students that don't speak the language. Now, follow me here with accountability. If that is your school system, you have a consistent revolving door of what we would call in our space of level 1 English language learners. And so they get assessed every year, and they continue to perform at the novice level until, guess what? They become familiar with the English language. Once they have some level of command, then we can start to see them moving out of that novice level. And so one of the things we would ask our legislators to consider, we've spoken with the Kentucky Department of Education, we have to have some accountability for every student. We fully recognize if you remove accountability, you run the risk of bad actors forgetting about those students. So we have to have that. What we would like to see is that when we have these situations, such as a student coming for one day and then not coming back and being considered as a dropout toward that school, how about that accountability move to the district? Why is that important? Well, it's important because we have schools, we have 23 of them. They are extremely competitive to demonstrate that they have a great school. It's very difficult when you have one school, one high school in particular, two actually, as Dr. Johnson can verify, where they're going to hit the majority of these students that only come perhaps for a day or two, and it crushes their graduation rate. If we had it to the district, it does two things. Number one, it makes it more accurate on how well is that school, particular high school, doing with graduating students. But then the second piece, you're not removing the accountability, which I fully support because we know what happens when accountability is not there. And so we have to have the highest level. So that, and then the other ask is how much time can we be given before we have to tell a student that they're novice when they have no shot, right? If you don't know the English language, you don't have any command of that, it's really a waste. And in some cases, it's heartbreaking to push a student. Again, we get that we have to assess them, and we try to do that in as delicate a manner. But just imagine being in another country, parachute into Burma tomorrow and take their standardized tests and see how well you perform. And add to that, you're going to be judged based on that. And that's what we're doing. And so we would just like some support.
Okay, this is why I wanted you to come and present today. I knew this stuff. We've been working together for the last couple of years trying to work on some changes to the accountability system. We found out part of it is federal, and we couldn't do what we wanted to do, so it was frustrating to me because I wanted to help those kids just like you all do. But this presentation did exactly what I wanted our colleagues to see. You know, I taught in 3 school systems: Warren County, which is 30% now EL students. Edmonson County probably didn't have an EL student, and Barron County had a handful. So it affects every district different across the state of Kentucky. And I wanted our colleagues to see, maybe that don't have these students in their community, how tough, how hard, how expensive it is to participate and do everything you can to help those students. So might have a couple questions. Senator Mays Bledsoe.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you both for presenting today. 2 questions. First, on the page where you show the chart, the assessment, it's where it shows the K through the top, and you mentioned it's this one.
Yes.
Okay, so let's assume that you take the bottom of the kindergartners, you've had them that long. How does that mimic your normal student body? If you have them from kindergarten, is the success rate at graduation the same, similar, less than to your students not in the program?
Now, I
Is
don't
that a question?
Yes, ma'am. I don't have the specific data in front of me, but what I can tell you with confidence that what you will find, students that stay with us K through 12, and I would say the vast majority of the Commonwealth, you're going to see that they reach that proficiency level. The transient level in our schools now, it used to be where people maybe who were struggling would be, but we're in a global world. And so now, if you don't have your child in more than one school system, you're pretty fortunate. You know, mine went through 3, okay, because there's opportunities at that are global, and so we have a lot of movement. And so what you'll find is a lot of the students in the achievement gap, they're in multiple districts. Now, whoever the district is that's providing the assessment will get the credit for the lack of progress, but the reality is the vast majority of those are transient students. And so that's another important thing to consider when we make judgments and label the success of a school or a district. The reality is you stay 12 years, you're going to be successful in almost every case. Sarah, do you want to correct me on any of that? Because, you know, I want to be accurate with whatever.
No, great.
Okay, and I appreciate that. That's true. Second question. In Fayette County, there's about 110 languages in the Fayette County schools, so it's similar. And it's a challenge, right? I'll just tell you on the soccer field. We've played teams that are all speaking Spanish, they're speaking Ukrainian, they're speaking Swahili and several different languages. Someone said, "This isn't fair, I have no idea what's happening," you know, and it's fascinating to watch because it's real life, like kind of Americana all in one space, which is a really cool thing to see. One of the principals, son plays on one of his teams that has a lot of Swahili dialects. He's a principal at an elementary school. He was telling me he started learning Swahili, so he thought he could be competent. And then he realized they're all speaking different dialects of Swahili. It didn't matter. And he was kind of laughing like it was a very naive thing for him to do. And I was like, no, I've been to Tanzania. That's very common. You know, but it's something you take kind of for granted. So my question is on the AI space, because we've talked some about how do you use, to your point, when you have 110 languages or 95, having a specialist in a language doesn't almost make financial sense, because you've just got too many languages.
That's right.
So have you seen, or can maybe not yet, one, are students more confident with having the AI tool with them, and do they feel it's accurate, and does that help them feel like they're getting a better reciprocity or engagement, and that maybe have better student success? And does that relieve the teachers from having so much maybe pressure or not sure that they're communicating well? Right. It's kind of a vague question, but I'm just curious.
Well, the answer is to be determined, because we just implemented this solution at the start of this school year. I think we only have it up and running in one completely. Our goal is to have a complete feeder by the end of the year up and running. What I can tell you is we've visited other districts that have implemented it, and thank you for pointing out the dialects. And Representative Jackson knows usually on this presentation, we're at 110, 115 languages. We just want to make sure we come here, let's see what today's is, because it literally is that moving target. But when you look at the dialects, I'll give you a great example, and Sarah can correct me because maybe something's changed in the last 7 days, but our solution provider doesn't have Swahili.
Yeah.
And that's a significant population of our students that are truly struggling because of that language barrier. I will tell you this has been done with careful thought and consideration, so we're very confident that making this pivot will have a greater return on the investment of our dollars. But again, we're anxious to see how this proceeds ahead, to see if in fact we are able to present the data that demonstrates that.
I would appreciate that, because I think it's showing up in other places in government. For instance, those who are waiting in jail and they're waiting for translators and they have to have a live person. There's a number of places actually where we need more help with that space. So I'd be curious to see how it goes.
And your point about the human capital piece is absolutely correct. AI is going to be the big shaker, I think, in this space, without a doubt.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
And I can add to that, Representative Jackson,
Yes,
if for
go
a
ahead.
moment, along with kind of the AI audio enhancement, so we use lots of other things too. So we have a language line, which is amazing. And so that we're spending about $71,000 on language line each year. And so, principals are able to call home, teachers are able to call home, get a translator. And so that's been a benefit. We also pay for in-person translators. And so we're spending about $13,000 on in-person translators each year. We bought Talking Points, which is a two-way communication system. And so that translates all of our documents to our families, and then they can respond in their language. And so that's been great. That's about $125,000 for 2 years. And then we bought Pocket Talks as well. And so those are handheld devices we take to homes, we keep in our front offices, we use for parent-teacher conferences. So those in the last 2 years, we've spent $30,000 on Pocket Talks to try to help with translation too. And so this audio enhancement is certainly, we feel, going to be a great addition. We used it in a parent meeting to share with parents about our new Impact Center for Leadership and Innovation. So we had the parents wear the headphones, and Dr. Rich, our principal of Impact Center, as he spoke, it was translating to them in the headphones. And so it was a great win for us. I think 2 Mondays ago, maybe, that meeting took place, and it was a very exciting moment for our families.
And a tune of about $400,000 a school. So that, when we talk about the expense, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with this, but Warren County Schools receives roughly about $70 per student that's identified as multilingual.
Senator Tenchner.
Thank you. This has been really enlightening. I have a lot of questions. I think when we had the Jefferson County Public Schools Task Force last year, looking at just the breakdown of their results from their assessments, and one of the things they brought forward was how much of an English language learning population that they have. Is there a way, and they didn't have a way to delineate who is a language learner in those assessments and who isn't. Do you all have a way to separate that data so that when I look and I see 39 or 49% high school reading proficiency, how much of that 49 is English language learners versus native speakers? Do you have a way to separate that data?
Absolutely.
We do. So the information that you have, those are all EL students, but also on the school report card from KDE, they're broken down into all the different groups.
Not the one that I have from like OEA. That's something different.
Oh, the one you have from Warren County. This one,
Yeah.
do you have this one? So that one that these bars right here, those are EL students only.
Okay.
And you can pull that on the school report card too, specifically by grade level.
Okay.
Is
all
that
right.
helpful?
Yes. I guess that's what I'm looking
The school
for.
report card that's located on the district website
Okay,
will
okay.
have that delineated.
Great.
I'm not familiar with the OEA
Yeah.
piece there and all the information that was.
Okay, great.
Placed into
That
that.
will be helpful. I'll look there. The other thing, You know,
And by the way, we're happy to share that with you.
Yes.
If you would
well, if
like-
it's on your website, I'll find it.
Well,
or is it even more detailed?
You're
That'd
welcome
be
to
great.
go to the website, but we'll make sure this committee has
I would
that.
love to see
We'll
that.
do
That would be
work
really
for you.
helpful.
Absolutely.
Yes, we'll get you a breakdown.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so when I look at this data, obviously the younger the student, the easier, right? But you do have students that come in high school. You have some whose brain is a little bit more solidified. And I learned a language abroad when we were living abroad as an adult. And let me tell you how challenging. It's really hard to develop those pathways when your brain is not young. And so the challenge of considering you have 1 year, there's just no way a student can come. And I think the emphasis, as opposed to focusing on that graduation rate, that shouldn't matter. It should be, do they know how to read the English language and how much that will help them in the future, right? As they get their driver's license, as they're, needing to read traffic signs, as they're going for a job and need to fill out an application. Like, the emphasis should 100% be on, do you read the English language at a proficient level, as opposed to, can we get you to where you need to be so we can give you a diploma? Because if they can't read the diploma, then obviously that's not going to be super helpful for them. But thank you all. I know you have a big challenge, and it obviously isn't just in Warren County, it's across the state. So hopefully we can find some solutions that help these students get to that proficient level of English.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Tenchner. I think you're seeing the big picture that that's the reason I wanted them to come and kind of explain to us how difficult of a situation it is. Representative Hever.
Thank you. I would just like to make a quick comment. Thank you all for coming all the way to Frankfort today. I know that Frankfort's a fun place to get to sometimes, and the Bluegrass Parkway can be quite boring. But thank you for coming. I just, as you're talking, I really just want to highlight what a privilege it is that we live in America, where these kids can come and get an education, where I would assume a lot of you all have 90 countries. How many of those kids come from countries that they're not allowed to be educated because of their gender, because of their place in society? And so what a gift that they're able to come to America, these families, and get an education. I think we take that for granted a lot. And so I just wanted to highlight that. And I really, for the accountability portion, I really hope that KDE will work with you all to get that. I think that from my experience, and I'm always hoping it changes. I think sometimes in Frankfort people get comfortable in their little chamber of things or their building, and they decide what makes sense for them, but not necessarily what makes sense in the district. And so I really hope KDE will work with you all to be able to get that, because we want to meet people where they're at, and that's exactly what you all are doing. And just from a families and children perspective, what a gift. We, right before a committee started, we were talking, and if we can get kids on a right path and grow up to be great members of society, let's give them that opportunity. So thank you all for what you do for everybody. But I look forward to hearing the progress from Kentucky Department of Education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick comment. I have every confidence that Commissioner Fletcher and KDE will do all that they can to help us. They've been very responsive.
Well, we're going to hear from some of their representatives here in just a minute about this exact topic, so from KDE. But I just want to make one comment and have a question. I went to a social studies class at Warren Central High School a couple of years ago to be a guest speaker. And I could tell there were a lot of nationalities, and I asked the teacher if he would have them raise their hand if they were not born in the United States. And out of 25 students, 17 of them raised their hand in one social studies class at Warren Central High School. And so that's what our schools, that's what some of our districts are dealing with. And just the nicest kids in the world. Some of them had on ROTC uniforms. Some of them had on ball uniforms, football jerseys, whatever. They participate in their school, but it's just such a barrier there that they're overcoming. My last question, I know I kind of compare special ed and EL students as far as difficulty of teaching. could you tell me, Ms. Johnson, you may know this, special ed, how much you get state, federal money for special ed students, how much you get for EL students? Or,
She's probably going to defer that one to me.
well,
So
I thought she might know.
here,
I'm
here's
afraid
A lot
I'm
more.
afraid you'll make something up.
no. I promise you, I'll keep it straight because I had to recall this last night. But we're roughly spending $17 million on educating our special ed population.
Okay.
And then when you look at the, help me out here, Miss Johnson. So it's 17 million on that. We're roughly getting $70 per student for our EL population, and then we're putting in another 2.2. Did I get that right? I'll find it.
I'll do this. I'll go back.
It won't take me long.
Well, it was
There it
in
is.
there.
So here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Do you have to put more money into special ed than what you get from the feds? And
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is significantly more the wide range of disabilities and, quite frankly, some of the limitations. We have more flexibility with the EL population, even though they'll be in smaller classrooms because of the necessity. But you have a lot tighter regulations with your special ed expenses.
So
And
any special needs, special population, there's always going to be much more expense to educate those kids than my kids and
that's
your
right.
kids and Miss Johnson's kids and so forth. So that was the point I was trying to make, that it's a much more demanding area financially as well as personnel. I want to thank you both for coming and presenting and opening the eyes for some people, and we may try to get you back again in the session to explain this, but I think we all need to know what we're dealing with out there, and you all did a great job. Safe travels home.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have folks from KDE. They're going to talk to us a little bit about testing, and this is an area that I was had a bill on 2 years ago and was trying to help kick the can down the road as we were talking about no student should have to test the first year after coming here from a foreign country and not speaking English. So I asked if Mr. Spalding and Ms. Marinelli would come. Mr. Spalding came from Warren County Public Schools. KDE stole him, I think, here just recently, but he does a great job. But if you would introduce yourself, make sure the bright green light's on. Introduce yourself and go ahead with your presentation.
Well, good afternoon, Representative Jackson. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today. And I have to say to Superintendent Clayton and Dr. Johnson that I'm not sorry that we have secured Will Spalding as our multilingual learner specialist, but just so grateful to be able to hear their story today and be able to learn both from them and with them as we work to expand our supports for schools and districts in this area. So I'm going to turn it over to Will. He's going to lead the main portion of the presentation today, but thank you again for allowing us a seat at the table.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. And I joked a little bit with Representative Jackson when he reached out. I said, "You're throwing me into the deep end my first 3 months on the job," but I have my floaties with me in case I get sidetracked. But I have been in Warren County the past 15 years in Warren County Public Schools and spent the last 4 years leading the EL department for Warren County. And we'll start today's presentation just by framing the conversation similar to what Superintendent Clayton did. So our English learners are identified as eligible for English language development services. They do that through a screener process. And then we expect our English learners to be proficient between 5 to 7 years. And that's nationally and at the state level. That's the goal to become proficient in English, just 5 to 7 years. As they mentioned, we judge this based off of the WIDA Access Assessment, which our EL students take annually in January to measure their language proficiency. And so they have an opportunity each year to exit services based on their score on that proficiency test. And then, as they mentioned, our EL students participate fully on the KSA assessment, although they may receive a one-time exemption if they're enrolled within that first school year when the KSA is presented. And then our multilingual learners are a much broader definition. So that's any student who has a home language other than English. So that could include our current EL students, students who did not qualify for EL services based on that screener, and then our students who have exited and become English proficient. So our ML students are all of those students. So I'll refer to both throughout the presentation as well. So just looking at our ML students throughout the whole state of Kentucky. As you'll see on the map, that's a representation of our districts and the EL enrollment by school district. And so last school year, Kentucky schools served 54,000 EL students across 1,000 schools in 160 of our 171 school districts. When you take into account all of our ML students, so again, those who have exited services as well, that's over 84,000 ML students, which is nearly 13% of our total K through 12 enrollment. So how did we get there? So looking at Kentucky as a whole, you have a bar graph here that the blue bars will show you the total number of EL students, those active students, enrollment throughout Kentucky public schools going back to the 2017-2018 school year, all the way to our most recent school year last year. So during that time, our EL enrollment has grown by over 25,000 students, which is an 89% increase. In contrast, Kentucky schools as a whole have only grown in enrollment about 2,890 students, which is less than 1% growth. So further evidence to show that our English learners are our fastest growing population in our Kentucky schools. And that's the red percentage there shows the overall percentage of EL students compared to the overall enrollment in Kentucky schools. So we're up to 8.3% of our total enrollment are our EL students. And then just a further point with this is that each and every year, Kentucky is averaging 7 to 9% of our students exiting EL services because they are proficient in English. So that just further shows the growth when we're growing by 5,000 students each year, but also exiting around 4,000 students, that truly our classrooms in Kentucky schools are even more diverse than they were years ago. So I wanted to also show that this is not just isolated in a few districts, that this map shows the growth that has occurred in our Kentucky schools over the past 3 years. So as I mentioned earlier, 160 districts serve EL students, and nearly 75% of those districts have a larger enrollment than they did 3 years ago. It's also worth noting that only 72 of those 160 districts receive any type of Title III funding from the federal government to support their EL programs. But again, we do have a highly concentrated area of our English learner population in 11 school districts. So 11 districts have an EL population above 10% of their total enrollment, and then 4 districts have an EL population above 20%. So 1 in 5 students in those districts are English learners. As Warren County mentioned, it's no different throughout the state as well, that we have many diverse learners from all areas of the globe in both their birth country or home culture. So as you can see in the pie chart, that yes, while Hispanic, Latino is our largest race and ethnicity, within that group we have students that are coming from various countries and cultural backgrounds. And that's the same for our African American students, our Asian students. Just a note about our 7.8% of students that are classified as white. So any student that is from the Middle East, Northern Africa, or Europe would be classified as white in Infinite Campus. And similar to Warren County, but at a much greater rate, we have over 180 languages represented in our Kentucky schools. And as Mr. Clayton mentioned, that's always a moving target, but you can feel pretty confident that last school year we had over 180 represented.
And so looking at the ways in which we are working to strengthen our support for schools and districts, we have taken the initiative to expand our state level staffing. And so obviously bringing on Will in the Office of Teaching and Learning was a really important decision in ensuring that we are trying to address the needs and that gap that currently existed. And we have built out a cross agency team with representatives from our Office of Continuous Improvement and Support, Career and Technical Education, as well as our Office of Special Education and Early Learning. So we are making intentional efforts to increase supports in this area. That was confirmed as a need as a part of the audit, the KDE audit that was released in July of 2025. But we were already working to secure that additional support in advance of the audit. But I wanted to also mention that the Title III program evaluation, which is conducted in partnership with the University of Kentucky, it is further confirming what we already know, and that there is great wide need for statewide support in this specific area as well.
So some of the strategies that we've identified for increasing our capacity to meet the needs of our school districts. The first thing that's guiding my work is to invest in our district leaders and our educator capacity. So how we plan to do that is we know that communication is key. So streamlining communication from KDE to our statewide schools and districts, we want to make sure that we're being consistent and coherent as much as possible. We also know that customer service is really important. So increasing our EL technical support opportunities. In my short 3 months on the job, I've already been able to connect with various school leaders and district leaders across the state who really want to do what's best, but are serving ELs for the first time. And so we want to continue to that opportunity, as well as providing ongoing professional learning. And one of the best ways to do that is through collaboration with our regional educational cooperatives to offer those professional learnings, as well as to strengthen or enhance any EL network. So that about half of our cooperatives have an established EL network with district leaders within their region. And so we want to connect and continue to connect and strengthen those partnerships and networks as well. So that way we are continuing to invest in our school leaders. And then lastly, we know that we need to target and strengthen our statewide ELD, our English Language Development Services, and our academic support. So in order to do that, we want to create state-level guidance that highlights and promotes our high-quality instructions for both ELD and our content teachers. We know that a language is not taught in isolation. It has to be ingrained throughout all content areas. We follow the WIDA standard, so I mentioned that WIDA created the access test, which we assess our students on, so they actually have standards that go along with that. So as educators know, we need to follow our standards, so we want to integrate our WIDA language development standards framework across our content areas. And so that's what our visuals represent there, is that our standards show that we can't just teach English in isolation, that language is incorporated and embedded throughout all content areas. And so we want to make sure that students have an opportunity and an access in all content areas, that we're integrating language development throughout all areas of the school. It's not just in the 20 minutes that they're pulled out or the one specific class they may have in high school, and to collaborate with all stakeholders. That all teachers are English EL teachers. Whether you have that certification or not, you have EL students in your classroom, and so we all have to be working together. And then lastly, to target our ELD instruction, to ensure that our EL teachers are teaching high quality materials and instruction that are going to increase our language proficiency for our students. Okay, I've made it across the deep end, and so we are happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Will, that was the easy part. Now the hard part comes to questions. No. Senator Tichenor.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Do you know what the average cost for student is per year for an EL learner?
I don't have what it would cost a district. I don't, because I'm sure in every district it's going to look very differently
Yeah.
too.
That would be a great number to be able to balance what the state needs, what the districts need. Maybe I should have asked you guys that. Do you know that, Luke? I'm writing it down. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else, Brandon? Well, I do want to brag on KDE. They were so helpful. We probably met 8 or 10 times when I was working on my bill, and they were so helpful and was ready to meet at the drop of the hat. So please take that back to the office and thank those folks for their cooperation. I will ask you to follow up on what Dr. Johnson and Mr. Clayton and I were at the superintendent's conference last Monday, and we got Commissioner Fletcher over there and asked him that question about could those scores go to the district instead of to the particular school that student comes in, and specifically in high school. If they come in 16, 17, 18 years old, never been in formal schooling and so forth, and they're not going to do good on the test. So can those test scores go, and it may be a federal thing, but if it's not, I hope we can make that change at the state level. So please follow up on that. He said he was going to let you all know and check into it. So if you would, please follow up on that.
Happy to do that. And I do want to say Dr. Jennifer Stafford, who is Associate Commissioner of our Office of Accountability, Assessment and Accountability, wanted to be with us today. She is actually presenting at the same time at the Continuous Improvement Summit on the new accountability model, but we'll absolutely take that back to the Commissioner and to Dr. Stafford. And I know, Representative Jackson, that there will be a desire to continue to work with you as this work moves forward.
Thank you very much. Will, you passed the test.
Yes, he did.
Thank you, sir.
Next up, Representative Kulkarni. Got caught in traffic, I heard, on your way over today from Louisville. Can't imagine that. Good to see you. I think you know the routine here. Make sure the green light's on. Introduce yourself and proceed with your presentation.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Jackson, Chair Mays Bledsoe, and members of the commission. I want to start by saying thank you for focusing on this particular topic. It's very timely, it's very urgent to a lot of different communities and across every county in our Commonwealth. So I appreciate you all giving all of these groups the time to present to you. I am taking off my legislator hat and putting on my civilian immigration attorney hat for purposes of this presentation. You see the Esquire at the end of my name. That is what that's for. I'm also the director of the New Americans Initiative. It's a nonprofit that I started to kind of focus on some of the barriers to full integration into our community, not just in Kentucky, but across our nation. So one of the things, I don't have the nice graphs that you all just saw. Oh, I don't have all of the nice graphs that you all just saw, but I tried to sort of distill a lot of the years of experience and issues that I've seen as a practitioner in immigration in Kentucky again, but also with regard to just our national immigration system. And some of the barriers to full integration in our communities is the complication of the legal process to become legal, to maintain your legal status, to get on a pathway to citizenship, attain permanent residency. There are a lot of delays and costs. It's thousands of dollars in filing fees. It can take months, sometimes years, to get just the green card, which is the permanent resident status. And that, of course, slows access to those individuals and those families to education, to jobs, and to stability in terms of long-term immigration and being able to put down roots in our country. Something that I've also spoken about, I often speak about immigration in terms of our workforce and economic development. Unrecognized credentials, and especially in terms of licensure, is an issue that we have talked about in different committees in our legislature over the years. And that is, due to a lot of individuals who have been displaced from their home countries who come here with foreign degrees, foreign credentials, a lot of experience or education in a particular field, but who are not able to continue on that same level or that same career path once they get here, because we have barriers to professional licensure. We have barriers to credential reevaluation, retraining, or reskilling. Because a lot of times people are here and they're trying to make ends meet. They're learning a new language. They are new to this country, new to this state, and are trying to, put food on the table, keep a roof over their family's heads. So getting back on track where they were in their home country may not always be the top priority, or, they may not be able to do it at all. One of the things I wanted to also mention is high tuition costs. So in-state tuition, a lot of scholarships, state financial aid, of course, are often limited to those with permanent resident status or citizenship. So if you are a non-immigrant, even if you're here lawfully, you're not eligible for any of those, any assistance in terms of higher education costs. We are lucky in this country that we decided a long time ago that children K through 12 deserve an education, regardless of where they come from, regardless of where they're born. That does not translate to our higher education system all the time. Increased naturalization difficulty and, of course, expense. And I mentioned there's a lot of costs and delays in terms of getting the green card. It's about $1,440 per adult application. And so you can see how that would quickly add up in terms of getting a family just to the green card process. It's about a $760 filing fee for citizenship. And that is, there's no reduced amount unless you're up about 400% of the poverty level. So it's quite a big gap for those to get a reduced fee. And that also takes months. So once you apply for your citizenship, you're still waiting months and months to actually get there. And I'll just, as an aside, if you all haven't gone to a naturalization ceremony, I don't know if anyone on this commission has, it is one of the most joyful things you will ever witness, because it is the final step in a very long, very difficult, often very expensive process for a lot of families. So I would recommend in your home counties, go ahead and try to go to one that's scheduled. It's administered by our federal courts, usually monthly. There's a lot of language barriers. We just talked about issues in our school system with limited English proficiency and the costs and how it hinders education, and then moving forward into employment and navigating day-to-day life. There is restricted access to certain careers. So a lot of public sector jobs, a lot of regulated professions like healthcare, in education, engineering require you to be a green card holder or a citizen. And so that entire career paths are not available to individuals who might otherwise be eligible. And then, of course, limited civic participation, because without attaining U.S. citizenship, you cannot vote, you can't serve on juries, and you can't fully participate in terms of policies that might affect you or your family. And I want to talk about why permanent residence and citizenship matter. So as a matter of context, that is what our nonprofit focuses on. We provide limited legal representation for adjustment to green card status and citizenship. We do not provide legal representation for all different kinds of immigration cases that may exist. And it's important because we want to focus on pathways to citizenship so that individuals can get those barriers to integration in terms of education or career pathways removed, and then, of course, make sure that they're integrated fully into civic life in this country. So why it matters so much for a person to take that step and get their green card, save money for the filing fees, save money for citizenship applications, and take that final step, is essentially streamlined access to all of the opportunities I just mentioned. Because with permanent resident status, individuals can again freely pursue education, employment, long-term stability in our country. There's a lot easier credential recognition. A lot of licensure and credentialing boards require green card status or citizenship to complete even the evaluations that are needed to grant those licenses. It will allow individuals and their children access to in-state tuition, access to some scholarships, and make higher education more attainable to those families. full civic access. Support for integration is an important point because citizenship often opens doors to more opportunities for language and civic education resources. And again, expanded career pathways and civic empowerment. So this is, the end goal is to make sure that everyone that comes here is put on these pathways to education and career advancement, make sure that they're participating as informed and engaged members civically as well. I made this chart. It's not as pretty as the other ones, but I wanted to kind of demonstrate in Kentucky, our population, right, the share of the population that is foreign-born versus their economic roles. So Kentucky is about 4.5% of its population is foreign-born. They are about 5% of the workforce in Kentucky. They make up about 7% of all business owners, 13% of all Main Street business owners, so small businesses. They're about 12% of our construction workforce, 16% of our physicians, and 24% of our software developers in our IT professions. And that is, I think, an important piece of context for us to understand who these folks are, what they're doing here, and how important a role they do play in pretty critical sectors, especially in our signature industries as well, right? So in agriculture, in manufacturing, in construction, in hospitality and tourism. But this is something that I wanted to just highlight for the commission. And I'm going to throw a bunch of numbers at you. Again, we talked about how much of a share of the population immigrants make up and how much of an outsized role they do play in our workforce and in our small businesses. I want to also point out they pay about, again, this is just nationwide, they pay about $1.5 billion in taxes on the federal, state, and local level, and $4.5 billion in spending power that they have. Sorry, that's for Kentucky. They generate about $14 billion a year in total economic input for Kentucky. And I wanted to highlight this report that just came out last year. It's from this big long acronym. It's the ASPE report from HHS. It's the fiscal impact of refugees and asylees at the federal, state, and local level. And they looked at the years 2005 to 2019, and it showed that the net fiscal impact of refugees and asylees was positive over that 15-year period at the rate of about $123 billion, which means that refugees and asylees, these are humanitarian categories, contributed more revenue than they cost in expenditures to the government over that period of time. The net fiscal benefit to the federal government was estimated at over $31 billion, and the net fiscal benefit to state and local governments was estimated at $92.3 billion. These are not insignificant numbers, and I think we need to remember over the long term, there is a higher upfront cost in educating these kids. There's a higher upfront cost in making sure that individuals that are recently resettled to our country or who have recently moved to our country or our state, there might be a higher upfront cost for some of them, but the contributions that they make over time, and this is over a 15-year period, a lot of times it's an even shorter time frame before you see the net benefit. So I want to talk a little bit about what New Americans Initiative does. Again, our focus is on establishing pathways to citizenship for our immigrant and refugee communities in Kentucky. So we focus on the population centers of Louisville, Lexington, Bowling Green, in northern Kentucky, which are growing in terms of their immigrant population. So we provide free, and I believe we're the only organization at this point. There's been a lot of cuts to funding and things like that for a lot of legal service providers. So there's not a ton of immigration attorneys in Kentucky generally, but we provide free legal clinics, legal workshops for green card adjustments and for naturalization, which is the citizenship process. So we help them provide assistance to complete their applications. It's limited representation, so we don't do the entire case, but we help them fill out the applications and make sure that they know how to monitor, how to respond to any information that's needed by the government. We also provide education and outreach in multiple languages on citizenship, on the process for naturalization, on pathways to citizenship. So depending on where you are on your immigration journey, what is the next step to get you to a green card, to get you to citizenship. And then, of course, the benefits of attaining permanent residence and citizenship. One of the barriers, of course, is the cost. Another major barrier is the understanding of the process. What is the legal process? Getting connected to an attorney. And then, of course, there's language access issues. And one of the major sort of jumps and hurdles that we see is people that have attained green card status, right? So maybe they were resettled as refugees, they became green card holders, they're eligible for citizenship within 5 years of obtaining their green cards, but they may not always take that step because it costs over $700 per person. It takes months, and the only thing they're really getting is the right to vote, the right to kind of participate in this civic fabric of our lives, but that is not, again, necessarily the priority for a lot of these families. And if they have to seek legal assistance, if they have to save up, $3,000-$5,000 for their families to be able to apply at the same time, it's often pushed back and back and back because the benefit is not always seen immediately. So we try also in our workshops and clinics and information sessions that we provide to these communities to show the importance of voting, the importance of civic engagement. So once they become citizens, we provide them with voter registration resources from the Secretary of State. Where do you vote? You can vote online or register to vote online. And educate them to help them understand what their rights and responsibilities are as citizens of the United States. One of the major things that we've also focused on are community partnerships. So there's, in Jefferson County, we have a lot of organizations focused on serving the immigrant community. Lexington also has resources, but they don't exist in a lot of the other counties, right, in our Commonwealth. And so building networks of nonprofits, helping those counties that don't have the resources get the materials or the information they need, or to get the information to those communities that need them in those counties, so that we can streamline some of the services and the outreach to more immigrants across Kentucky. And because I'm working as an attorney, I just want to throw out some sources because it's also difficult to find a lot of data and a lot of statistics. So we look to primary sources like the Census Bureau, the Department of Labor, the Department of Education. And then there's a few different nonpartisan nonprofits that also compile a lot of data and do a lot of reports, which is two of which I've mentioned here are Migration Policy Institute and the American Immigration Council. So I would recommend anyone on the commission who's interested in finding out more. These sources have a wealth of information and data on these specific topics that we talked about. And that's all I have for today. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I think you did such a good job, Representative Kulkarni. There's not any questions, but I will say, any questions, Brenda? I will say thank you for what you do. Thank you for volunteering your time and your effort. When I get ready to move to the Caribbean islands, I would like for you to represent me as an immigrant to that territory. So just keep your license active and make sure you can do that.
Noted. Duly noted. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Representative
members.
Kulkarni. Appreciate it. Our last presentation, we have about 15 minutes left, if we could. We have folks from Community Response Coalition of Kentucky. While they're getting settled in, Dr. Johnson did get me, I think it was Senator Titchener, somebody asked, answers to a couple of questions. Spending out of general funds for EL students is $6.6 million. Preschool, $2.2 million, special education, $17.5 million. So that's 6.6 for EL, 2.2 for preschool, 17.5 for special ed. EL spending per student is $1,600. General fund, $1,412. So the special revenue, $188, right? Okay. Thank you for that information. So you can see 23, 24, 26, over $26 million out of the general fund for EL, preschool, and special ed, just those 3 programs. So you can understand why some districts are scrapped right now for funds. Ladies, thank you for being here. Thank you for being patient and waiting on us. If you would, again, make sure the bright green light is on your microphone. If you would, introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you. There's some advantages to being last, and there's some disadvantages, we know. My name is Marilyn Daniel. I'm the Vice President of the Community Response Coalition of Kentucky, which is a 501c3 nonprofit which provides wraparound care to immigrants primarily in central Kentucky. I'm an attorney, and I have worked for the past 26 years with immigrants in central Kentucky. I was one of the principal founders of the Maxwell Street Legal Clinic in Lexington and participated in the creation of CRCKY in 2018. You have in your packet a background on CRCKY, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about us. I do want you to know that we've served over 7,000 individuals from about 45 different countries in our 7 years of operation. And we appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. You also have 2 pages addressing the barriers to integrating immigrants we would like to discuss with you. And they're also on the slide, the next slide. I'd like to begin by discussing the work of the Kentucky Department for Community-Based Services. DCBS has been proactive in its efforts to protect children in immigrant families. But these folks need 3 things. Number 1, a mandatory immigration training protocol for all DCBS employees in all Kentucky locations. Number 2, access to immigration attorneys for the children in their custody who are a part of immigrant families, and many of those children will be U.S. citizens. And number 3, more funding for housing, not just for immigrant children, but all children in their custody, so that children are not sleeping in DCBS offices. And to assist the work of DCBS, Kentucky family court judges need more training on immigration law so that they can respond appropriately to requests for custody orders for immigrant children in certain procedures to legalize their status. Jenna?
We've seen with our own experience in referrals that certain judges will not take custody cases that have certain circumstances attached because they don't want to rule on immigration related matters, or don't feel like they have, at least this is how it's been relayed to us, that they don't have that background. And that's led to them not agreeing to take those cases. And immigration attorneys have had to get special permission from other counties to see if those judges would take those cases so that those cases could be heard and that those custody orders could be proceeded with. I'll go right into my portion. My name is Jenna Potter. I am an outreach coordinator for CRCKY. I'm also a partially accredited rep for the Department of Justice, which means that I can function as a legal advocate in cases for immigrants that are not in removal proceedings. So before immigration, before the governmental arm immigration. Our next portion that we wanted to cover really relates to the Department of Motor Vehicles. A lot of the practical things that we see as we're providing social services and trying to integrate immigrants deal with some of the bureaucracy and barriers that they experience. Our first part is we hope to see better employee training for those working for the DMV. The DMV is not a pleasant place to be for many, but it can be very confusing. We hope that that there would be, especially in the part of driver's licenses, that that we would include some additional verification, or at least maybe some additional language during that process that people are obtaining a driver's license. Often, if you're not familiar with the bureaucratic process, that it can be confusing, and if you're automatically offered, would you like to register for votes, or would you like to register as a voter, that makes an unnecessary point of confusion, where if we were able to give that person the voter registration requirements, it would lead to a better outcome, where we're not feeling that people who are ineligible to vote are volunteering themselves and creating problems for that immigrant in the future, where that could keep them from naturalizing. We also would we would respectfully request that you review the policy where people who are registering their car could use an ITIN in place of a social security number. That's been something that the policies have changed in previous years, and with our particular populations, where they are often waiting on pending applications, which could take up to a year, it can be really problematic getting them working under their work authorization and getting around, which leads to more unregistered cars on the road, unfortunately. All right. We also would hope that DMV personnel would be more trained on immigration policies. I know that immigration law moves pretty quickly, but improperly trained staff and non-standard procedure have led to people who were looking to renew their work authorization, which can sometimes take several months. They have the right to have a kind of a grace period where they can renew their driver's license under statute, but there have been times that we have sent a copy of the statute, a letter, and they've had to visit 3 DMVs to be able to renew their license while they wait for their permit to come. I'll turn this over to Martha.
Hey, greetings everybody. My name is Martha Kikoko. I was going to be presenting about education and access language. I myself came here into this country as a refugee, and I sit here speaking English being my 4th language. I speak many other languages outside of English. And Dr. Sarah and Mr. Rob Clinton, I hope I'm saying that right, and Representative Nima have already touched on some of the barriers that we amplify with, and I am here speaking English, a language that I never imagined I'll be speaking. I went through the process of ELL both in middle school and high school, and I see here I have a bachelor's in clinical leadership and management. I am a certified phlebotomist and a lab technician, and I'm currently doing my master's in health administration at NKU. So thank you. And that's it for me, because everything I've already been touched on. Thank you.
And I'd just like to put in another comment on that. CRCKY supports everything that you've been told by the public school administrators. I mean, we deal with those clients, and if you told me I had 1 year to become proficient in a foreign language and take a content test, I would drop out. So I didn't know that. And I think learning that, there's a lot that needs to be done to help those students. So we certainly support all of that.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to housing. We know that affordable housing is always a challenge, and finding housing assistance and meeting the needs of those that are unhoused is always a challenge. For the immigrant population, we've seen particular challenges. For someone who's waiting on their asylum application and waiting for an approval to work, that usually takes about 6 months from the time of filing. That's after they've paid legal fees and filing fees. They usually, once you've obtained your work permit, which you would hope if your application is filed correctly, that usually can take several months. It can take up to a year before you're getting reliable income from employment. They don't have access to Social Security numbers until they have their work permit. It is a limited Social Security number, so it's only for working. And some of them really are relying on the kindness of their friends or family members. There really just isn't stable housing options during this time. And if you don't have a Social Security number, you may not even be able to access some of the shelters. So we have seen a huge need, not only for people who are with pending applications, but refugees finding affordable housing. A lot of times we're hearing that, even the money that the stipend that they're given wasn't even covering the rent for the apartment that they were set up in. So we would just hope that as you're tackling this big problem, that you also include some thought into how those specific barriers.
We just have a couple minutes if you want to bring it all together.
Oh, I think we are done. Yeah. Well,
Okay. I think Representative Kilcarney covered the licensure, which is the last thing on our concern.
Mm-hmm.
And you do have a summary of our points in your packet.
Miss Marilyn, I want to thank you for your, how many years?
26. That's since I retired.
Of service. Of service. Jenna, I think you had the most quotable quote of the day. DMV is not a pleasant place to be. Amen to that. And I think our friend Miss Martha, you are the perfect example of everything that we've talked about here today.
Thank you.
You're the why Warren County Public Schools and KDE and everybody else do the things that they do. So thank you for coming and presenting and being a part.
Thank you.
Senator Mays Bledsoe.
Thank you, Chair. You're exactly right. Ms. Martha, you've been doing this a long time, and a long time in Lexington.
Thank you.
And I wish I spoke 4 languages.
That'd be nice. And Miss Daniel, when we started Global X, you were around that table in Lexington because we have such a strong immigrant population. We're looking for places of synergy, and this list is exactly what we talked about almost, 8 years ago, I think, when we started Global X. So the need hasn't gone away. It's only gotten bigger. And I really appreciate the detail in all these ideas because they help us kind of frame where we can be and be thoughtful around different issues. And the licensure, I think we're hoping to tackle again this year. We tried last year. I know that's another issue that I believe will come back next year. But I want to ask you specifically about the DMV piece. Are other states using the ITIN number for cars?
I know for sure that California is. There are other states that I think there was a list that I reviewed this morning that were about 8 other states.
Would you mind sending it when you get
Certainly.
it? I'd be curious just how they're doing that and if it's effective. I know it's really frustrating for people when you have unlicensed cars and you get hit by one. It's a thing. So I was just curious how other states are doing that.
I know that from my research this morning, or from my research, there is an actual reminder from the IRS not to use it as a personal identifier,
Right.
which could create a barrier. But I think states are doing the best they can with what they have, and I can send that to you.
That would be great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank all of our presenters again today for being here and being patient with us. It's eye-opening. I know a lot of this stuff, but I hope my colleagues on the committee will share with their colleagues about the needs and desires and the wants that we have in this in this area. So thank you all for being patient and listening today and asking questions. Our next meeting of the Commission on Race and Access to Opportunity will be October the 21st. We will hear from the principals of the West End School in Louisville and Carter G. Woodson Academy in Lexington. So for us education geeks, it sounds like another good meeting to me. Motion to adjourn.